You don't get to talk to me like that. Know your place, lady. The slap echoed down the hallway before Ms. Renee Caldwell could finish her sentence. Ethan Holloway's palm snapped across her face, sharp and deliberate, whipping her head sideways with the force of it. He scoffed, rolling his wrist like he'd just flicked away a nuisance. I don't answer to you. You're lucky you even work here. Renee didn't move. Her hands stayed calm at her sides while heat bloomed across her cheek, and everyone waited for her to explode. Ethan leaned in, smug and satisfied, certain he'd just put a powerless teacher in her place, never knowing every detail was already documented, and his name was headed straight to the top of a $5 million lawsuit. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The afternoon dismissal bell pierced through Northridge Preparatory School, its shrill ring echoing down the pristine hallways. Dr. Alana Brooks stood outside room 220, gathering her lecture notes and student papers into her worn leather briefcase. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, sorting through the day's materials as students streamed past. The hallway filled quickly with the usual end-of-day bustle, expensive backpacks slung over shoulders, designer shoes squeaking against polished floors, the constant buzz of teenage chatter. Dr. Brooks could feel a presence lingering, disrupting the normal flow of traffic. She looked up to find Evan Whitlock planted firmly in her path, his 6-foot frame blocking her exit. Trying to leave so soon? Evan's voice dripped with contempt. After that little show you put on in class? Students slowed their pace, forming a loose circle. The subtle movement of phones being raised caught Dr. Brooks's peripheral vision. She kept her voice measured, professional. Mr. Whitlock, we've discussed the classroom conduct policy. If you'd like to schedule a meeting to review it. Conduct policy? Evan cut her off with a harsh laugh. Who do you think you are? Just temporary help trying to play teacher to your betters. Dr. Brooks maintained eye contact, her expression neutral despite the sting of his words. Please step aside, Mr. Whitlock. This conversation is over. Over when I say it's over. Evan stepped closer, towering over her. The gathered crowd grew larger, more phones appearing. Not a single faculty member stepped forward. You need to remember your place, Evan snarled. The slap came without warning, a vicious backhand that snapped her head to the side. The crack echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Dr. Brooks stumbled, catching herself against the wall. The metallic taste of blood touched her tongue. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by scattered laughter. Someone whispered, "Oh no!" Another voice called out, "Geez, Evan." The phones stayed up, recording everything. Dr. Brooks straightened slowly, her cheek burning. She could feel her pulse pounding in her ears, but her voice remained steady. Everyone needs to get to their next class. Now. She turned and walked away, her steps measured and deliberate. The crowd parted, still filming. She made it to her classroom, closed the door, and turned the lock with trembling fingers. Only then, in the silence, did she touch her lip and see the faint smear of red on her fingertips. Through the window, she could already see students hunched over their phones, sharing what they'd captured. The assault would be online within minutes. She sat at her desk, alone in the quiet classroom, and forced herself to breathe deeply. Her face throbbed. Her hands shook, but she wouldn't cry. Not here. Not now. The steering wheel felt cold under Dr. Brooks's fingers as she drove home in complete silence. Rush hour traffic crawled along the expressway, but she barely noticed. Her cheek still burned where Evan's hand had struck her, a constant reminder that wouldn't fade. She touched her split lip gently, wincing at the sting. Her phone buzzed repeatedly in her purse on the passenger seat. She ignored it, focusing on the road ahead through increasingly blurry vision. Not tears. She wouldn't allow those. Just exhaustion settling in as the adrenaline finally began to fade. The sun was setting by the time she pulled into her driveway, casting long shadows across her small but well-maintained colonial home. Inside, she dropped her keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, a routine gesture that felt oddly foreign today. Everything felt foreign. Her phone buzzed again, more insistent this time. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, hundreds of social media notifications. As she stared at the screen, another call came through. Janice Moore. "Alana?" Janice's voice trembled slightly. "Oh, God. Are you okay? Have you seen what's happening online?" "I just got home," Dr. Brooks replied, sinking into her favorite armchair. "How bad is it?" "The video. It's everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Someone posted it to TikTok an hour ago, and it's already got hundreds of thousands of views." Janice paused. "The comments, Alana, they're horrible." Dr. Brooks opened her laptop with steady hands. "Send me the link. Are you sure you want to—" "Send it, please." A text message arrived with the link. Dr. Brooks clicked it, and there it was. Her humiliation preserved in high definition. The angle caught everything. Evan's sneer, the crack of his hand against her face, the ripple of laughter that followed. She watched it once, only once, forcing herself to observe it clinically, like evidence rather than trauma. The comments scrolled endlessly beneath. "That's what happens when you don't know your place. Rich kid put her in check far, far. Someone had to teach her." Racial slurs peppered the replies, each one more vitriolic than the last. Dr. Brooks closed the comments, but left the video playing on mute, watching the view counter tick upward with alarming speed. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Twitter notifications. Evan Whitlock was trending. So was her name. So was Northridge Prep. "The alumni are furious," Janice continued on speakerphone. "Some are threatening to pull donations. Others are, well, they're defending him, saying you must have provoked him somehow." A new email notification popped up on her screen. An anonymous message with her home address and the words, "Watch your back." She forwarded it to a separate folder without comment. "Alana, are you still there?" "I'm here." Dr. Brooks opened a new document and began typing, recording every detail of the day with precise timestamps. Just documenting everything. "Like the old days?" Janice asked softly, referring to Dr. Brooks' previous career in education advocacy. "Exactly like the old days." At 11:30 p.m., a new email arrived from Principal Raymond Hale. "Dr. Brooks, I want to assure you that we are handling this unfortunate situation with the utmost seriousness. The school board is fully engaged, and appropriate measures will be taken. In the meantime, please refrain from making any public statements or social media posts about the incident. We must handle this through proper channels. Best regards, Raymond Hale, Principal, Northridge Preparatory School. Dr." Brooks copied the email into her documentation, noting the carefully crafted language. Unfortunate situation. Appropriate measures. Empty words designed to sound concerned, while committing to nothing. She opened her old advocacy toolkit folder, unused for years but never deleted. Inside were templates for documentation, incident reports, and civil rights complaints. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with muscle memory, filling in dates, times, witnesses, locations. The video had been shared thousands of times now. She downloaded multiple copies, along with screenshots of the worst comments. Everything was time-stamped, categorized, backed up. Around midnight, Dr. Brooks connected 3 encrypted external drives to her laptop. She created separate folders on each one, methodically copying the video, her documentation, the threatening emails, and screenshots of social media posts. One drive would stay home, one would go to her safety deposit box, and one would go to a trusted friend. The sound of the slap kept echoing in her mind as she worked. She could still feel the sting, still taste the blood. But her hands remained steady as she typed, her mind clear and focused. This wasn't just about today anymore. This was about everything that led to today, and everything that would follow. The clock struck midnight as she finished the last backup. Through her living room window, she could see a car driving past her house for the 3rd time in an hour. She made a note of the license plate number, added it to her documentation, and saved everything one final time. The morning sun crept through Dr. Brooks's kitchen window, casting a warm glow that felt oddly out of place. Her coffee sat untouched, wisps of steam slowly fading as the black liquid cooled. She'd been sitting at her small oak table since 5 a.m., watching the neighborhood wake up through half-drawn curtains. Her phone screen lit up again, another news alert. The video had reached national outlets overnight. She'd stopped counting the missed calls and messages hours ago. A text from her sister. CNN is talking about it. Dr. Brooks switched on the small TV mounted in her kitchen corner. Her own face stared back at her, a still from her faculty photo next to shaky footage of the incident. The anchor's voice filled her quiet kitchen. Shocking video emerges from prestigious Northridge Preparatory School. She muted it, unwilling to hear strangers dissect her humiliation over breakfast. Through her front window, she could see unfamiliar vehicles beginning to line her usually quiet street. News vans, their satellite dishes reaching toward the morning sky like metal trees. Her phone rang, Principal Hale's office number. She let it ring twice before answering, her voice steady and professional. Dr. Brooks speaking. Alana. Hale's voice oozed practiced concern. I hope you're doing all right this morning. I wanted to inform you personally that Evan Whitlock has been placed on temporary suspension pending review of yesterday's incident. She noted his careful choice of words. Not assault, not attack, just incident. I'd like to meet with you privately this morning, he continued, before the school day begins. Let's say 7:30, through the side entrance, if you don't mind. To avoid the media circus out front. I'll be there, she replied simply. The drive to school took longer than usual. News vans clogged the main entrance, reporters clutching microphones like lifelines in the morning chill. Camera flashes sparked against her windshield as she turned into the faculty lot, but she kept her eyes forward, face neutral. The side entrance was quieter, though she noticed several expensive cars she didn't recognize in the reserved parking spaces. One bore the Whitlock vanity plate she'd seen before. Principal Hale's office hadn't changed since her last visit. Same mahogany desk, same carefully arranged certificates, same leather chairs designed to make visitors feel simultaneously comfortable and slightly inferior. But she noticed details now that she'd overlooked before, like the framed photo on his credenza. Hale beaming beside Grant Whitlock at some charity function, both men raising champagne glasses. Please, sit. Hale gestured to one of the leather chairs. Coffee? No, thank you. He settled behind his desk, arranging his features into what she recognized as his serious but sympathetic expression, the same one he used at difficult parent conferences. "First, let me say how deeply troubled we all are by yesterday's events," he began, folding his hands on the desk. "Violence has no place at Northridge Prep." "I agree completely," Dr. Brooks said. "That said," he continued, his tone shifting slightly, "we need to discuss certain contextual factors." She kept her face neutral. "Contextual factors?" "Several students have come forward expressing concerns about the tone of your interaction with Evan prior to the physical contact." "Physical contact," she repeated softly. "Is that what we're calling it?" Hale shifted in his chair. "Dr. Brooks, Alana, you have to understand the delicate position we're in. The Whitlock family has been instrumental in building Northridge into what it is today. That science wing wouldn't exist without their generosity. Are you suggesting that donors' children have different behavioral standards than other students?" "Of course not," he said quickly. "But these situations require nuance. The board is very concerned about the school's reputation. If we could handle this internally—" He reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a document. "We've prepared a statement that would help everyone move forward. It acknowledges that tensions were high on both sides, that there may have been some misunderstanding of intent." "You want me to sign a statement saying I provoked being slapped in front of my students?" "That's not exactly—" He paused as his phone buzzed. Glancing at it, his expression tightened. "The donors are very upset, Dr. Brooks. Very upset indeed. But if we handle this properly, things will blow over. The media will move on. Everything can go back to normal." She studied him for a long moment. The careful language, the practiced concern, the subtle threat beneath the sympathy. Her eyes drifted to the photo of him with Grant Whitlock, their champagne glasses catching the camera flash. "The statement includes an agreement not to pursue any legal action," Hale added, sliding the paper toward her. "Standard procedure in these situations." Dr. Brooks stood, smoothing her skirt with steady hands. "No. I'm sorry? I won't be signing that statement, Mr. Hale." His practiced smile faltered. "Dr. Brooks, please be reasonable. Think about your career, your reputation. The board is willing to be very generous." "My reputation," she said quietly, "is not for sale. Neither is my dignity. Neither is my students' right to a safe learning environment. Good morning, Mr. Hale." She turned and walked out of his office, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Behind her, she heard him calling her name, his tone shifting from cajoling to concerned to commanding. She didn't look back. The hallway stretched before her, sunlight streaming through the high windows. The same hallway where yesterday she'd felt the sting of Evan's hand. The same hallway where students had laughed. The same hallway where no one had stepped forward to help. Now she understood with perfect clarity. The school wasn't on her side. It never had been. The school parking lot had emptied hours ago. But Dr. Brooks remained in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the asphalt, and the silence felt heavy after a day of whispers and sideways glances. Her phone buzzed, another email from Northridge Prep. She hesitated before opening it, her chest tightening as she read the subject line. Important update regarding recent events. Dear Northridge community, after careful review of yesterday's mutual altercation between a faculty member and a student, the administration is conducting a thorough investigation. We take all incidents of classroom conflict seriously. The words blurred as her eyes narrowed. Mutual altercation. 3 syllables that erased the truth. She scrolled further, each paragraph more carefully crafted than the last to minimize what had happened. Both parties contributed to an escalation of tensions. Our commitment to maintaining a positive learning environment. Pending full review of all circumstances. A notification popped up. Video unavailable. The clip of her assault had vanished from the school's official channels, supposedly for investigation purposes. But she knew better. She'd seen this playbook before, back in her advocacy days, how truth could be buried under procedure, how justice could drown in paperwork. Her phone rang, an unfamiliar number with the school district's area code. Dr. Brooks speaking. Dr. Brooks, this is Lydia Price, legal counsel for the district. The voice was silk over steel. I'm calling to address some concerns about statements you've made regarding yesterday's incident. Alana watched a group of birds scatter from a nearby tree. I haven't made any public statements, Ms. Price. Nevertheless, there are rumors of potential legal action. I feel obligated to remind you that false accusations can have serious professional consequences. Your contract includes specific clauses about harmful statements against the institution. Are you threatening me, Ms. Price? Not at all. Just offering friendly guidance. These situations can become complicated. Careers can be damaged. Reputations tarnished. I'm sure you understand. I understand perfectly. Alana's voice remained steady. Is there anything else? A pause. Just remember, the district prefers to handle personnel matters internally. Good afternoon, Dr. Brooks. The call ended. Alana sat still, watching the sun sink lower. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. She opened one. A conservative news site had picked up the story. The headline made her stomach turn. Troubled teacher provokes honor student. The real story. Below it, Evan's yearbook photo smiled back at her. Star athlete. Debate team captain. Early acceptance to Princeton. His accomplishments listed like armor against accountability. The comments section was already filling with speculation about her attitude problem and chip on her shoulder. The drive home felt longer than usual. As she turned onto her street, she noticed the changes immediately. Mrs. Patterson, who usually waved from her garden, suddenly became very interested in her roses. The Collins kids, who often played basketball in their driveway, were conspicuously absent. Then she saw her mailbox. The words, "Go back," were sprayed across it in red paint, drips still wet in the evening light. She parked in her driveway, took 3 deep breaths, and photographed the vandalism from multiple angles. Documentation. Evidence. The old habits coming back like muscle memory. Inside, her house felt different too. Smaller. Less safe. She drew the curtains, checked the locks twice, and went straight to her home office. In the corner stood a filing cabinet. Old, metal, with a heavy-duty lock. She hadn't opened it in years, but she'd never gotten rid of it either. The key was where she'd always kept it, in a hollow book on the top shelf. The lock turned with a satisfying click. The bottom drawer contained her past life. Manila folders stuffed with civil rights precedents, education law briefs, class action procedures. Her fingers traced the labels, cases she'd helped win, reforms she'd helped push through, before she'd decided to return to teaching, believing she could make more difference in the classroom than the courtroom. In the back, a red notebook held her old contacts. Advocates, activists, attorneys who'd fought beside her. Some had moved on. Some had given up. But some? Her fingers stopped on a name. Angela Martinez. They'd worked 3 cases together. All victories. Angela had never backed down, never compromised, never accepted good enough when justice was at stake. The last time they'd spoken, Angela had said, "If you ever change your mind about playing nice..." Alana picked up her phone. The number was still there, unchanged after all these years. As it rang, she looked at her reflection in the window, composed, determined, unbroken. Angela answered on the third ring. "Martinez." "Angela?" "It's Alana Brooks." A pause. "I saw the news. Been waiting for your call." Alana's voice was calm and clear as she said, "I'm ready." Morning sunlight glinted off the courthouse's marble steps as Dr. Alana Brooks walked steadily upward, her heels clicking against stone. Beside her strode Naomi Feld, a civil rights attorney known for taking on impossible cases and winning them. Cameras flashed like strobe lights. Reporters crowded the steps, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Their questions overlapped in a chaotic chorus. "Dr. Brooks, how long had the harassment been going on? Was this racially motivated? Any response to the school's statement?" Alana kept her eyes forward, face composed. She'd chosen her outfit carefully. A charcoal gray suit that projected authority, pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. Her bruised cheek was covered with makeup, but she'd left her split lip visible. Let them see the truth. Naomi raised her hand for silence. The crowd quieted, sensing a statement. She stood tall, her voice carrying across the courthouse plaza. "This morning, we are filing a $5 million civil rights lawsuit against Evan Whitlock, North Ridge Preparatory School, and its Board of Trustees," Naomi announced. The complaint details assault, systematic retaliation, and racial discrimination that violates both state and federal law. More cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled frantically. Dr. Brooks, a nationally certified educator with 28 years of exemplary service, was physically assaulted by a student in full view of witnesses. Rather than address this violence, the school has engaged in a calculated campaign to silence her and bury the truth. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. Evan Whitlock emerged, surrounded by a phalanx of expensive suits. His father, Grant Whitlock, followed. Tall, gray-haired, radiating cold authority. Evan caught sight of the cameras and smirked, straightening his tie. Alana felt the boy's presence like a chill down her spine, but she didn't turn. She'd learned long ago not to give bullies the satisfaction of her attention. "The speed of this filing is deliberate," Naomi continued, her voice cutting through the renewed commotion. "We are acting within 24 hours to ensure all evidence is preserved. We have reason to believe attempts have already been made to destroy crucial documentation." Inside the courthouse, their footsteps echoed off marble floors. Security waved them through metal detectors while the Whitlock entourage waited in line. Money couldn't buy priority at federal checkpoints. Alana allowed herself a small satisfaction at that. The clerk's office was crowded with morning business. Naomi handed over the thick stack of documents, hundreds of pages detailing years of systematic discrimination, carefully preserved evidence, and witness statements collected through the night. $5 million, someone whispered behind them. "Who does she think she is?" Alana signed where indicated, her signature steady. Each page felt like both a shield and a sword. Protection and justice in black ink. They emerged into the main hall just as the Whitlocks' legal team arrived. Evan brushed past deliberately close, his cologne overwhelming. "You'll regret this," he mouthed, eyes gleaming with malice. Outside, Alana's phone buzzed constantly. Social media was erupting. Supporters praised her courage, shared their own stories of abuse covered up by wealthy institutions. But the backlash was just as fierce. Accusations of greed spread quickly, alongside claims of reverse racism and warnings that she was destroying a young man's future. Some voices celebrated the lawsuit, calling for accountability and justice, while others dismissed it as a cynical money grab by a failed teacher. Still others echoed the same familiar refrain that she had forgotten her place, while a growing chorus stood firmly behind Dr. Brooks. News vans had multiplied during their time inside. Local stations were breaking into regular programming. Naomi handled the pressing questions while Alana stood beside her, dignity intact. "This case isn't just about one assault," Naomi declared. "It's about systemic failure, about institutions that protect privilege over justice, about the assumption that wealth equals impunity." Grant Whitlock emerged from the courthouse, his face thunderous. His lawyers huddled around him, already planning counter-moves. Evan trailed behind, still wearing that smirk that said he believed himself untouchable. "Dr. Brooks has dedicated her life to education," Naomi continued, "to helping young people understand their rights and responsibilities as citizens. The irony that she now must defend her own civil rights in court should disturb us all." A reporter thrust a microphone toward Alana. "Dr. Brooks, are you concerned about retaliation?" She met the reporter's eyes calmly. "I'm concerned about every teacher and student who has ever been silenced by power and privilege. This isn't about retaliation. It's about accountability." The words carried across the plaza. She saw Grant Whitlock's head snap up, saw Evan's smirk falter slightly. They hadn't expected this version of her. Composed, strategic, unafraid. Camera shutters clicked rapidly, capturing the moment. On one side, wealth and institutional power, assembled in expensive suits and radiating contempt. On the other, a teacher and her attorney, standing firm on courthouse steps. The lines weren't just drawn. They were carved in stone, documented in federal filings, broadcast across airwaves. There would be no quiet settlements, no simple resolution. The war had gone public, and Alana Brooks was done being silent. As they descended the steps, Naomi squeezed her arm gently. "Ready for what comes next?" Alana nodded, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Behind her, she could feel Evan's stare burning into her back, could almost hear him mouthing those words again. "You'll regret this." But she wouldn't. Not this time. Not ever again. The setting sun cast long shadows across Dr. Alana Brooks's front lawn as she pulled into her driveway. Her normally pristine garden showed signs of trampling, probably from reporters who'd tracked down her address. A white envelope lay propped against her front door, the red "Certified Mail" stamp like a warning sign. She gathered her briefcase and laptop, maintaining the composed demeanor she'd held all day, though exhaustion pulled at her bones. The weight of the day's confrontation at the courthouse still hung heavy in her shoulders. Inside, Alana placed her things carefully on the kitchen counter before picking up the letter. The school district's logo glared from the corner. Her fingers didn't shake as she opened it. She'd been expecting this. "Dear Dr. Brooks," she read aloud to her empty house, "effective immediately, you are placed on unpaid administrative leave, pending investigation into recent incidents." Her phone buzzed. An automated email notification. Her school login credentials had been revoked. They'd moved fast, cutting off her access to class materials, email, and the electronic gradebook she'd meticulously maintained. Alana set the letter down and opened her laptop. Social media exploded with new posts. Someone had edited the assault video, adding laugh tracks and mocking commentary. Her face burned as she watched a new clip. Evan's friends in the school hallway, taking turns pretending to slap each other, exaggerated falling, howling with laughter. Downloaded and archived, she muttered, saving copies to a dedicated folder. Her phone rang, Naomi Feld's name lighting up the screen. "I'm sending preservation notices to the school," Naomi said without preamble. "They can't delete evidence, including security footage and emails. How are you holding up?" "I'm documenting everything," Alana replied, fingers moving steadily across her keyboard. "They've already locked me out of the system. The timing alone suggests premeditation. Keep recording times and dates. Naomi's voice cut off as a deafening crash filled the room. Alana ducked instinctively. Glass sprayed across her living room floor, glinting in the dim light. A brick lay among the shards, wrapped in paper with a crude message scrawled in marker. "Know your place." "Alana? Alana?" Naomi's voice came from the dropped phone. "I'm here." Alana's voice remained steady as she picked up the phone. "Someone just threw a brick through my window. I'm calling the police. I'm coming over. Don't touch anything." Alana photographed everything. The brick, the note, the pattern of broken glass. She called 911, then stood back and waited, watching shadows move across her front yard through the jagged hole in her window. The police took 45 minutes to arrive. 2 officers, both young, both male, neither bothering to hide their annoyance. "Could be neighborhood kids," the first officer said, barely glancing at the brick. "Probably shouldn't have stirred things up with that lawsuit." "I'd like the brick logged as evidence," Alana said firmly. "This is related to documented threats following an assault at Northridge Preparatory." "The Whitlock kid?" The second officer's eyebrows rose. "Look, ma'am, maybe you should consider dropping this whole thing. Rich folks don't like being pushed. Are you suggesting I ignore a hate crime because the perpetrator is wealthy?" Alana kept her voice level, but her phone recorded every word. They left without taking the brick. Naomi arrived minutes later, face tight with anger, as Alana recounted the officer's response. "Typical," Naomi spat, "but useful. Their dismissal of a hate crime becomes part of our evidence pattern." Together, they boarded up the window. Alana refused to leave her home. That would feel like surrender. Instead, she set up her laptop at the kitchen table, every light in the house blazing against the darkness outside. "I'll have a security company here tomorrow," Naomi said. "For tonight, I'm staying." Alana shook her head. "Go home to your family. I need to work anyway." Hour after hour, Alana built her case. She documented every social media post mocking the assault, every threatening message, every instance of the school's rapid response to silence her. She tracked down former students who'd witnessed similar incidents, carefully noting which ones might be willing to testify. Her eyes burned as she created timeline after timeline. Evan's previous disciplinary incidents, all mysteriously resolved. Administrative emails showing pattern recognition software had flagged unusual deletion rates in the school's servers right after the assault. A car drove by slowly around midnight, hip-hop music blasting. Alana recognized Evan's friends' voices shouting slurs. She noted the time, added it to her documentation. Another car at 2 a.m. More shouts, more notes. By 4 a.m., her kitchen table had become a command center. Laptop, legal pads, phone continuously backing up to secure clouds. She'd written detailed accounts of every conversation, every subtle threat, every moment of retaliation since Evan's hand had struck her face. The sky began to lighten outside her kitchen window. Alana's eyes were bloodshot, but her focus never wavered as she initiated the upload to Naomi's secure legal server. Years of advocacy work had taught her the importance of redundancy. Evidence had a way of disappearing when wealth and power felt threatened. The upload bar crept forward as dawn painted her kitchen in gray light. Each percentage point represented another piece of ammunition against a system that thought it could silence her through intimidation. The screen flashed, "Upload complete. All files secured." Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Naomi Feld's downtown law office, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. Dr. Alana Brooks sat across from Naomi's desk, both women surrounded by stacks of files and documents. The office hummed with the quiet intensity of strategic warfare. "Look at this," Naomi said, sliding a folder across her desk. "We obtained these through back channels. 3 separate incidents involving Evan Whitlock, all sealed by juvenile court." Alana opened the folder, her expression carefully neutral as she read. "Threatening a cafeteria worker in 9th grade, intimidating a junior varsity teammate, and—" Her voice trailed off as she reached the 3rd incident. "Physical assault of a substitute teacher," Naomi finished. "All buried under confidential settlements. The amounts are staggering. 50,000 here, 75,000 there. Pocket change for the Whitlocks." Alana's fingers traced the dates on the documents. "The substitute teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. I remember when she suddenly left. The school said it was for personal reasons. They're good at making people disappear," Naomi said, her tone sharp. "But they've never faced someone who knows exactly how their system works." Alana pulled out her laptop. "I have contact information for students from the past 5 years. Many of them witnessed these incidents." For the next hour, they made careful calls. Most former students hesitated, remembered fear evident in their voices. But slowly, patterns emerged. Stories spilled out. "He pushed me down the stairs," one former student whispered. "My parents got a check the next day. We never spoke about it again." Another, "He used to corner kids in the locker room. The coaches pretended not to see." By mid-morning, a breakthrough. "I'll talk," said Marcus Weber, class of 2021. Anonymously. "I've got screenshots of threats he sent me. My parents were too scared to fight back then, but I'm not scared anymore." Alana was documenting Marcus's account when her phone buzzed. The school board had released a public statement. She read it aloud, her voice steady despite the word's impact. "North Ridge Preparatory has always maintained the highest standards of inclusivity. We are deeply concerned by Dr. Brooks's attempt to weaponize race in what was clearly a routine disciplinary incident. We stand with our donors and students against such divisive tactics." Naomi swore under her breath. "Right on schedule. Have you seen the donor response?" Alana switched tabs on her laptop. Local news headlines showed Grant Whitlock, Evan's father, pledging a new $1 million STEM wing for North Ridge. Other wealthy parents had started a legal defense fund for Evan. For the first time since the assault, Alana felt her composure crack slightly. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The money, the influence, the way they close ranks. Her hands trembled as she set down her coffee cup. "Good," Naomi said firmly, leaning forward. "Their arrogance makes our case stronger. Every public statement, every donation, every attempt to intimidate, it's all evidence of systematic retaliation. This isn't just about the slap anymore. It's about the entire corrupt machine." Alana straightened in her chair, professional instincts taking over. She pulled out a fresh legal pad and began mapping connections. Years of education advocacy had taught her to recognize institutional patterns. "Here," she said, drawing lines between events. "The timing of the donations correlates with cover-ups. The board statement uses specific language that triggers federal discrimination standards. Their retaliation follows textbook patterns: isolation, character assassination, economic pressure." She worked methodically, her expertise transforming raw data into a damning timeline. Each incident connected to federal civil rights violations. Each attempt to silence her strengthened the larger pattern. "We need to file a federal whistleblower complaint," Naomi said, studying the timeline. "Not yet," Alana replied, surprising them both with her certainty. "They expect immediate escalation. They have prepared responses for that. Let them think they're winning." She stood up and walked to the evidence wall they'd created. Photos, documents, and transcripts covered every inch. Evan's smirking face appeared multiple times, along with headlines, social media screenshots, and sealed court records. The wall told a story bigger than one assault. It revealed a system designed to protect privilege at any cost. A system that had never faced an opponent who understood its weaknesses from the inside. "They think I'm alone," Alana said, studying the patterns they'd uncovered. Her voice carried the quiet authority that had sustained her through decades of being underestimated. The morning sun cast her shadow across the evidence wall, stretching long and unbroken over the documented history of corruption. Outside, the city moved in its usual rhythms. Inside, two women methodically built a case designed to shake that corrupt system to its foundations. Naomi stood beside her, both of them contemplating the scale of what they were undertaking. The wall of evidence loomed before them like a mirror reflecting back the ugly truth of institutional power. But in that reflection, they also saw the path forward. A path built on documentation, testimony, and the strength of those who had finally found their voices. Through the window, they could see the spires of Northridge Preparatory rising in the distance, its prestigious silhouette casting long shadows over the city. For now, those shadows still held their secrets. But not for much longer. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked parking lot of Eddie's Diner, a faded establishment on the outskirts of town where local truckers usually stopped for coffee. Today, the diner was nearly empty except for an elderly couple in a corner booth and a solitary waitress refilling sugar dispensers. "Doctor?" Alana Brooks sat in a worn vinyl booth, her hands wrapped around a cooling cup of coffee. She'd chosen this location carefully, far from the affluent neighborhoods surrounding Northridge Prep, away from watchful eyes. The bell above the door chimed. Thomas Reed entered, his tie loosened and shirt wrinkled. The assistant principal's usual polished appearance had deteriorated since the incident. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and a thin sheen of sweat glistened on his forehead, despite the diner's aggressive air conditioning. "Dr. Brooks," he said, sliding into the booth. His voice cracked slightly. "Thank you for meeting me here." Alana placed her phone on the table, the recording app already running. "I appreciate you reaching out, Thomas." The waitress approached, but Thomas waved her away, his hands trembling as he reached for a paper napkin to dab his forehead. "What I'm about to tell you," he glanced around nervously, "I could lose everything." "You're protected under whistleblower statutes," Alana said calmly. "I have the paperwork with me." Thomas leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "The morning after it happened, we had an emergency meeting. Principal Hale, the board president, and Grant Whitlock himself. They gave us direct orders about the video." "What kind of orders?" "To scrub it. Everywhere we could find it. The IT department worked overtime. He twisted the napkin in his hands. We had to contact students, pressure them to delete their copies. Some parents got calls from the Whitlock's lawyers. Alana maintained her composed exterior, but her heart raced. Tell me about the witness statements. They were coached, all of them. Thomas's words tumbled out faster now. We were given a script. Anyone who saw the incident had to meet with administration before giving their version. The pressure on teachers was intense. Sign this, say that, forget what you saw. The elderly couple paid their bill and left. The waitress retreated to the kitchen. They were alone now. The worst part, Thomas continued, was watching them build the narrative against you. Every email, every statement, it was all calculated. They started pulling your old performance reviews, looking for anything they could use. Did they find anything? No. Your record is spotless. So they started. He swallowed hard. They started inventing things, backdating complaints. I watched them do it. Alana's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. Would you be willing to testify to this? Under oath? Yes. Thomas's answer came quickly, though his hands still shook. I can't sleep at night. My wife says I've changed. This isn't why I became an educator. There will be consequences, Alana warned. They'll come after you. I know, but I have copies, emails, meeting notes, the original video before they edited it. It's all saved. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a USB drive. This has everything. As Thomas placed the drive on the table, movement caught Alana's eye. Through the diner's grimy window, she spotted a black SUV idling across the street. Even at this distance, she recognized Evan Whitlock behind the wheel, his face illuminated by his phone screen. Thomas followed her gaze and went pale. Oh, God! They followed me. Stay calm, Alana said quietly. Finish your statement. Pretend you don't see them. For the next 20 minutes, Thomas detailed the systematic cover-up. Names, dates, locations, everything recorded clearly on Alana's phone. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, as if each revelation lifted a weight. I'll testify, he said finally. Whatever it takes. They can't keep doing this. They left separately, Thomas through the back door, Alana through the front. The black SUV was gone, but its message had been received. Later that night, as Alana prepared for bed, her phone rang. Thomas's name flashed on the screen. They called Rachel, he said, panic evident in his voice. My wife. Lawyers showed up at her office. They know about her past bankruptcy, things we never told anyone. They said they could make sure she never works in finance again. Thomas, listen to me. They have everything on us, Alana. Everything. His breathing was erratic. What do I do? Call Naomi first thing tomorrow. She can file for immediate protection. Don't delete anything. Don't sign anything. We knew they'd do this. I won't back down, he said, but his voice shook. I'll testify. I have to. After hanging up, Alana sat at her desk. She copied Thomas's recording to multiple secure locations, backed up his USB drive, and documented every detail of their meeting. In the silence of her home office, she opened her journal, a habit from her advocacy days, and wrote a simple entry. This is where they push harder. The words stared back at her, stark against the white page. Outside, a car alarm wailed briefly, then fell silent. Her phone buzzed with another text from Naomi, but Alana kept writing, recording everything while it was fresh. Every detail mattered now. Every word could be the one that finally broke their system of silence. The courthouse steps gleamed with morning dew as Dr. Alana Brooks climbed them beside Naomi Feld. News cameras tracked their approach, reporters shouting questions that bounced off the stone columns. Inside, the preliminary hearing room buzzed with tension. Evan Whitlock sat with his legal team, his pressed suit and carefully styled hair, presenting an image of youthful innocence. His father, Grant, occupied the row behind him, phone in hand, jaw set in familiar arrogance. On Alana's side, the wooden benches held a handful of supportive teachers who had risked their jobs to attend. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Marion Reeves entered, her silver hair pulled back severely. She surveyed the packed room before taking her seat. "You may be seated. We're here for preliminary testimony in Brooks versus Northridge Preparatory. First witness?" Naomi stood. "The plaintiff calls Thomas Reed." The side door opened. Thomas entered, looking smaller in his dark suit, but his steps were steady. He took the oath, voice clear despite his obvious nervousness. "Mr. Reed," Naomi began, "please state your position at Northridge Preparatory. Assistant principal, going on 5 years now. Were you present on the day of the assault against Dr. Brooks?" "Yes." Thomas glanced at Evan, then quickly away. "I was in my office when I heard the commotion. What happened next?" Thomas described the aftermath in careful detail. The emergency meetings, the coordinated cover-up, the systematic pressure on witnesses. His testimony was devastating in its precision. Dates, times, names, everything matching the evidence Alana had gathered. "And who ordered the deletion of video evidence?" "Principal Hale, after consulting with Mr. Whitlock." Thomas pointed at Grant. "They said it was for everyone's protection, but really—" "Objection!" Evan's lawyer shot to his feet. "Speculation!" "Overruled," Judge Reeves said sharply. "Continue, Mr. Reed." For 2 hours, Thomas laid out the entire operation. He described watching administrators forge backdated complaints against Alana. He detailed how donors threatened to withdraw funding unless the situation was handled. His voice grew stronger with each revelation. Judge Reeves interrupted several times to reprimand the defense attorneys. She ordered immediate preservation of all school records and warned about witness intimidation. In the gallery, reporters scribbled frantically. During a brief recess, Alana overheard snippets of conversation in the hallway. "Slam dunk case," someone whispered. "They'll have to settle big." Even Evan's usual smirk had faded to something approaching worry. The hearing concluded with Thomas's testimony still echoing in the chamber. Judge Reeves scheduled follow-up dates and dismissed them with a stern warning about evidence tampering. Outside, media crews swarmed. Naomi fielded questions while Alana watched Thomas slip away through a side exit, his shoulders straight despite the weight he carried. "This is a strong start," Naomi said, as they walked to her car. "Thomas's testimony validates everything. They'll be calling about settlement by tomorrow." For the first time since the assault, Alana felt something close to relief. She drove home under a bright afternoon sky, allowing herself to imagine victory, justice, vindication. Her phone buzzed with supportive messages from colleagues and former students. At home, Alana changed into comfortable clothes and made tea. She sat on her back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of hope. Birds called their evening songs. A neighbor waved as she walked her dog. The peace shattered at 8:45 p.m. "Alana." Naomi's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Thomas just called. He's hired new counsel." The teacup slipped from Alana's fingers, shattering on the porch tiles. "What?" "Gregory Walsh, the same firm that represents the Whitlocks." "That's impossible. His testimony—" He's reconsidering his statement. Says he may have misremembered certain details. Naomi's disgust was palpable. They got to him, Alana. Hard! Cold spread through Alana's chest. The USB drive? The emails? Walsh claims they're privileged administrative communications. They'll fight to suppress everything. A sudden burst of color lit the sky. Fireworks bloomed and faded, followed by distant cheers. North Ridge Prep's graduation party. Evan's celebration. What do we do? Alana asked, her voice hollow. We fight. Thomas's original testimony is still on record. We have your documentation. But, Naomi hesitated, this hurts us. Badly. More fireworks exploded, casting strange shadows across Alana's living room. She didn't bother turning on the lights. The darkness felt appropriate. Get some rest, Naomi said finally. We'll regroup tomorrow. Alana sat motionless in her armchair, watching the celebration lights paint patterns on her wall. Each burst felt like a mockery. Evan's triumph, her setback. The system protecting its own once again. The tea spread across her porch in a dark pool, much like hope seeping away. But beneath the weight of betrayal, something else stirred. Not defeat. Not yet. She had weathered worse storms than Thomas Reed's weakness. In the distance, the fireworks continued their celebration of privilege preserved, of power maintained. But in her dark living room, Alana sat straight-backed, mind already turning to other options, other strategies. The light show couldn't last forever. Neither would their victory. The morning sun cast long shadows through the courthouse windows as people filed into the now familiar hearing room. Dr. Alana Brooks sat straight-backed beside Naomi, watching faces in the growing crowd. News crews jostled for position, their cameras ready. The Whitlock legal team sprawled across 3 tables, papers and laptops arranged like battlefield weapons. Thomas Reed entered through the side door, flanked by his new attorney, Gregory Walsh. Gone was yesterday's nervous determination. Today, Thomas wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. His shoulders hunched beneath an expensive new suit that somehow made him look smaller. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Reeves took her seat, frowning at the thick stack of morning motions. You may be seated. Mr. Walsh, I understand your client wishes to revise his testimony? Yes, Your Honor. Walsh stood, every inch the polished corporate defender. Mr. Reed has realized he may have spoken in haste yesterday. He wishes to correct the record. Naomi's pen snapped in her grip. Alana placed a steady hand on her friend's arm, even as her own stomach churned. Thomas took the stand, swearing his oath in a voice barely above a whisper. The difference from yesterday was stark. Where he had been precise, he now fumbled. Where he had been certain, he now claimed confusion. I was emotional yesterday, Thomas said, reading from what appeared to be prepared notes. The stress of recent events affected my memory. And the meetings you described, Walsh prompted. The ones where you claimed administrators coordinated to suppress evidence? I misunderstood routine policy discussions. Thomas wiped his forehead. Nothing improper occurred. The video deletion? Standard privacy protocol. I was wrong to suggest otherwise. In the gallery, Grant Whitlock smiled. Evan whispered something to his attorney, smirking. The reporters scribbled frantically, their story shifting before their eyes. Naomi stood for cross-examination, her voice controlled fury. Mr. Reed, yesterday you provided specific dates, times, and names. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? Objection, Walsh shot up. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Reeves said. Rephrase, counselor. For 40 minutes, Naomi tried to salvage Thomas's original testimony, but he had been well coached. Every damaging statement became a misunderstanding. Every specific detail dissolved into vague uncertainty. The foundation of their case crumbled with each denial. During a brief recess, Alana watched Thomas hurry past, Walsh's hand firmly on his shoulder. Through the courthouse windows, she caught a glimpse of a black SUV with tinted windows, the kind Grant Whitlock preferred. When Judge Reeves returned, her expression was grave. Given the witness's recantation and the lack of corroborating evidence, I am forced to dismiss the following claims. She read through a devastating list. The civil rights violations, the institutional conspiracy, the pattern of discrimination. Each dismissal felt like a physical blow. The remaining assault charge may proceed, Judge Reeves concluded, but only against the individual student, not the institution. The defense team barely contained their celebration. Cameras swung between the parties, capturing victory and defeat in real time. Outside the courtroom, headlines already appeared on phones. Teacher's discrimination case collapses, and Brooks' allegations unraveling. Alana walked through the courthouse lobby in a daze, Naomi's worried voice fading into background noise. Through the glass doors, she saw more reporters gathering. Their questions would be arrows now, not lifelines. Her phone buzzed. An email from Northridge Prep's board secretary, emergency meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. She didn't need to attend to know the outcome. Alana, Naomi caught her arm. We need to discuss options. The case isn't completely dead, but how much longer can we fight? Alana asked quietly. Naomi's silence was answer enough. They both knew what legal fees were doing to Alana's savings, what months without pay had cost her. The drive home felt endless. Alana parked in her driveway, staring at her house, the home she'd bought after 15 years of teaching. The one she'd thought was her anchor. 3 envelopes waited in her mailbox. 2 were printed in aggressive red. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. The 3rd was from her bank, probably warning about overdrafts. She had drained everything fighting this far. Inside, Alana finally allowed herself to break. She sank onto her couch, tears burning her eyes. The weight of it all crashed down. The assault, the betrayal, the grinding machinery of power protecting itself. Her hands shook as she covered her face. For 5 minutes, she let herself feel it all. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes, and walked to her home office. Behind her degrees and teaching awards, a wall safe waited. The combination clicked softly. 8/15/65, her father's birthday. He had taught her about justice, about standing up even when standing hurt. Inside the safe, behind old photos and insurance documents, lay a sealed manila envelope. The words, "Federal, do not file unless retaliated," were written in her precise handwriting across the front. Alana stared at it, remembering the night she had prepared these papers, how she had drawn on every lesson from her advocacy days, every bitter experience watching power escape consequences. She had known, even then, that they would try to bury her, that they would think her ordinary. Her hands were steady now as she reached for her phone. She dialed a number she had memorized months ago, waiting through 2 rings. A crisp voice answered, "Office of Civil Rights Enforcement." Alana took one deep breath. "This is Dr. Alana Brooks, authorization code 7749 Alpha. I need to speak with Director Martinez." A pause. Papers shuffled. "One moment, Dr. Brooks." Alana looked at the envelope in her lap, at the foreclosure notices on her table. at the degrees on her wall that had earned her no protection. Director Martinez's voice came on the line. "Dr. Brooks, I've been monitoring your situation." "I'm ready," Alana said. "Proceed." The evening shadows stretched across Alana's living room floor as she sat cross-legged on her couch, laptop balanced on her knees. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of her computer and the occasional distant car passing outside. Her fingers moved steadily over the keyboard, organizing files she had protected for months. Her phone buzzed. Naomi's name lit up the screen. "It's done," Naomi said, her voice crackling with contained energy. "The federal whistleblower complaint is active. The moment they terminated you after documented retaliation, they triggered automatic review protocols." Alana's shoulders relaxed slightly. "How long until—" "The Office for Civil Rights is already processing the initial documentation. Federal investigators have been assigned." Naomi paused. "Alana, this is masterful. You built this failsafe from the beginning, didn't you?" "The moment Evan slapped me, I knew they'd try to bury it." Alana opened a folder labeled Federal Evidence on her laptop. "I've seen too many cases disappear into private settlements and sealed records, but federal oversight changes everything." "Walk me through what you've prepared," Naomi said. Alana clicked through subfolders, each meticulously organized. First, the complete timeline. Every interaction, every email, every casual threat. I have screenshots of the original video from multiple sources before they scrubbed it. There's a folder of student testimonials about previous incidents, anonymized for their protection. And the donor connections? Documented. Alana opened another file. Internal memos showing financial pressure from the Whitlock family. Emails between board members discussing how to handle racial complaints. Records of suspicious donations following buried incidents. She could hear Naomi taking notes. "This is why you waited, isn't it? You knew they'd escalate to termination. They had to show their full hand." Alana scrolled through more evidence. "Local authorities can be influenced. State oversight can be pressured. But federal civil rights violations? That's a different game entirely. They can't just throw money at this now," Naomi said. "Federal investigators don't take private settlements. Every piece of evidence becomes part of the public record." Alana glanced at her window. A car had slowed outside, its headlights sweeping across her living room walls. She waited until it moved on before continuing. "I've uploaded everything to secure servers," she said, "including Thomas Reed's original testimony and evidence of what made him change it." "The timing is perfect," Naomi said. "They're all exposed now. The school board, the Whitlocks, everyone who participated in the cover-up. They thought the case was dead. They thought I was just an angry teacher who would break under pressure." Alana's voice was steady. "They forgot I spent years in education law before returning to the classroom. They never bothered to check why I left advocacy work." "Why did you?" Alana closed her eyes briefly. "Because I thought I could do more good teaching students about their rights directly. Now I get to do both." She heard Naomi shuffling papers. "The federal investigation will be thorough. They'll subpoena everything. Emails, financial records, meeting minutes. No one can conveniently lose evidence anymore." Outside, another car drove by slowly. This time, Alana caught a glimpse of its dark shape lingering at the corner before disappearing. "Someone's watching the house," she said quietly. "Expected," Naomi replied. "They're probably trying to figure out why we're not more devastated by today's court disaster. Want me to send someone to keep an eye on things?" "No." Alana saved her files and closed the laptop. "Let them watch. They'll understand soon enough." Try to get some sleep, Naomi said. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. After hanging up, Alana moved through her darkened house, checking locks and windows. The foreclosure notices still sat on her table, but they seemed less threatening now. She had known this fight would cost her. Financially, emotionally, professionally. She had prepared for it. In her bedroom, she placed her phone on the charger and lay down fully dressed. For the first time since the assault, she felt truly ready to sleep. The evidence was secured. The federal machinery was in motion. No local power structure could stop it now. Through her window, she could see the same car pass by again, moving slower this time. Its headlights swept across her ceiling before it finally drove away into the night. She imagined their frustration, their growing unease. They thought they had won today. They thought she was finished. Alana closed her eyes, remembering her father's words from long ago. Justice isn't about who has the most power today. It's about who prepared better yesterday. The house settled into silence around her. Outside, crickets chirped steadily. A light rain began to fall, tapping gently against her windows. For months, she had carried the weight of her secret weapon, waiting for the right moment. Now it was launched, unstoppable. She drifted off to sleep, her breathing even and calm. In her dreams, she saw Thomas Reed's face as he betrayed her, Grant Whitlock's smirk in the courtroom, Evan's mocking expression. But behind them all, she saw the federal seal, the wheels of true justice beginning to turn. The first light of dawn was just beginning to creep through her curtains when her phone buzzed with multiple alerts. Alana blinked awake, reaching for the device. News notifications filled her screen, all variations of the same headline: Federal Civil Rights Investigation. Opened in Northridge Prep Assault Case. Dawn broke over Northridge Preparatory School's manicured grounds, the rising sun glinting off polished windows and ivy-covered brick. The parking lot sat nearly empty, with only a few early-arriving teachers' cars scattered across reserved spaces. At precisely 7:15 a.m., a convoy of unmarked federal vehicles rolled through the main entrance. They moved with practiced precision, blocking all exits. Men and women in dark jackets emerged, badges visible on their belts. Students arriving for early activities froze on the sidewalks, phones immediately rising to record. "Federal agents! We have a warrant." The lead investigator's voice carried across the courtyard as they approached the main entrance. Security cameras tracked their movement, but inside, the guards looked uncertain, hands hovering over phones. Principal Raymond Hale had just settled into his morning routine when his office door burst open. Two agents entered without waiting for permission. "Please step away from your computer," the female agent instructed. "This office is now sealed under federal authority." Hale's face drained of color. "I need to contact our legal team. Your devices are part of the warrant, sir." The male agent was already disconnecting Hale's computer. "Please step into the hallway." Outside, students pressed against windows, recording as teams of agents moved through the building. IT staff were escorted from the server room, watching helplessly as federal technicians began downloading and documenting everything. Decades of emails, financial records, and deleted files were being recovered. In the administrative wing, assistants sat frozen at their desks as agents sealed offices with evidence tape. The college counseling center, where wealthy parents often held private meetings about donations, received special attention. Boxes of files disappeared into federal vehicles. Grant Whitlock's personal attorney arrived at 8:30 a.m., demanding to see the warrant. He left looking shaken 20 minutes later, immediately dialing his client. By 9:02 a.m., Whitlock's law firm had released a statement. This morning's federal action represents procedural harassment, targeting a respected educational institution. We view this as a politically motivated attack on private education, and will respond accordingly. But their usual confident tone was notably absent. Something in the warrant had rattled them. Across town, Alana sat in her living room, watching the coverage unfold on multiple news channels. Her phone buzzed with Naomi's call. "It's bigger than we thought," Naomi said, without preamble. "The federal investigation has triggered a review of sealed juvenile records. Not just from Northridge, from 3 different schools Evan attended." Alana leaned forward. "They can unseal those. When they involve civil rights violations, yes." "And Alana," Naomi paused, "people are coming forward. Former students, parents, even staff. The phone hasn't stopped ringing. On TV, a tearful mother was speaking to reporters outside Northridge. "They paid us to keep quiet," she said, her voice shaking. "My daughter was attacked last year, and they said if we wanted her to get into a good college, we needed to handle it privately. We were afraid to say no." More parents appeared throughout the morning, each with similar stories. The pattern emerged clearly. Threats, payoffs, destroyed evidence, and ruined futures for anyone who dared to speak up. By 11:00 a.m., social media exploded with a new development. The entire school board had submitted their resignations, effective immediately. Their joint statement cited personal reasons and health concerns, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Inside Northridge, agents worked methodically through the building. Teachers gathered in small groups, whispering as more offices were sealed. Several administrators were escorted to federal vehicles for questioning, their faces hidden from cameras. At noon, the agents reached Principal Hale's office. Students filmed through classroom windows as teams carried out boxes and hard drives. Hale himself sat in the administrative conference room, his normally perfect posture crumpled, watching years of careful political maneuvering crumble. Alana's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a blocked number. "Dr. Brooks?" an official voice asked. "This is Special Agent Martinez with the Civil Rights Division. We're serving you with a subpoena for testimony." Alana's heart skipped. "I understand. To be clear, ma'am, you're not a target. You're classified as a protected witness under federal whistleblower statutes. We'll need your complete testimony about the pattern of discrimination and retaliation you've documented." "Of course." Alana's voice remained steady. "When?" "A federal marshal will deliver the paperwork within the hour. Your attorney should accompany you to the formal interview tomorrow." As she hung up, Alana watched another news update. Federal agents were now at the Whitlock Foundation offices downtown. The camera showed Grant Whitlock's private elevator locked down, agents posted at every exit. The morning's events played across multiple screens in her living room. On one, students were sharing old videos of Evan's behavior that they'd been afraid to post before. On another, education reporters discussed Northridge's history of buried complaints. A third showed financial analysts tracking suspicious patterns in the Whitlock family's educational donations. A light knock at her door announced the federal marshal's arrival. The subpoena was thick with attachments, each page representing a piece of evidence she'd carefully preserved. Her testimony would connect it all, showing how the pieces fit into a years-long pattern of corruption and cover-ups. Alana signed for the document, her hand perfectly steady. Through her window, she could see news vans gathering at the end of her street. They wanted to interview the teacher who had brought down a corrupt empire. But she wasn't ready to speak yet. Her testimony would come first, detailed and devastating, backed by federal authority, that no amount of money could silence. The federal courthouse loomed against the morning sky, its stone columns casting long shadows across the gathering crowd. Television crews jostled for position on the steps as dark SUVs with tinted windows arrived in quick succession. Security was tight, with federal marshals posted at every entrance. Inside courtroom 4A, Judge Patricia Martinez adjusted her glasses, reviewing the motion before her. The gallery was packed, the tension palpable. Evan Whitlock sat between his attorneys, his usual smirk notably absent. His father, Grant, occupied the row directly behind him, phone silenced but clutched like a lifeline. In the matter of sealed juvenile records, Judge Martinez began, her voice cutting through the whispers. This court finds compelling evidence of a pattern relevant to current federal civil rights violations. The motion to unseal is granted. Evan's lead attorney shot to his feet. Your Honor, we object to— Objection noted and overruled. Judge Martinez cut him off. These records are directly material to establishing a pattern of behavior that the defendant's team repeatedly denied existed. She nodded to the federal prosecutor. Proceed. The prosecutor, Sarah Chen, approached with a thick binder. The government introduces Exhibit 47A through 47F, sealed incidents from Riverdale Academy, 2019. The courtroom's display screens flickered to life. Security footage showed a younger Evan shoving a black student down a flight of stairs. The timestamp matched perfectly with financial records showing a $50,000 facilities donation from Grant Whitlock the following day. Exhibit 48A through 48D, Wellington Prep, 2020. More footage appeared. Evan cornering an Asian American teacher in an empty classroom, throwing racial slurs before security arrived. Another donation followed, larger this time. Exhibit 49A through 49H, Northridge Preparatory, prior incidents. The pattern continued, each incident followed by strategic payments, forced transfers, and signed non-disclosure agreements. Evan's composed facade cracked as the evidence mounted. His father's knuckles whitened around his phone. The government now introduces Exhibit 50, comprehensive surveillance footage from Northridge Preparatory, March 15, 2023. Multiple camera angles showed the hallway incident with Dr. Brooks in perfect clarity. The sound of the slap echoed through the courtroom speakers. Every detail was visible. Evan's deliberate approach, the gathered crowd's reaction, the visible mark on Alana's face. This footage directly contradicts statements made by school officials claiming mutual provocation. Prosecutor Chen stated, Dr. Brooks maintained professional composure throughout, while Mr. Whitlock demonstrated clear premeditation. Judge Martinez turned to the defense table. In light of this evidence, the government is pursuing criminal charges. Mr. Whitlock will be charged with assault, battery, and civil rights violations under federal statute. Evan's face went pale. His father half rose, but a marshal's stern look kept him seated. Your Honor, Grant's personal attorney interjected, Mr. Whitlock Sr. would like to address— Mr. Whitlock Sr. is not a party to these proceedings, Judge Martinez said sharply. And given the ongoing investigation into witness tampering, I strongly advise him to remain silent. Naomi Feld approached next, carrying her own evidence binder. Your Honor, we have financial records establishing direct links between Whitlock Foundation donations and systematic suppression of evidence. The screens displayed spreadsheets, email chains, and bank transfers. Each document connected another dot in the constellation of corruption. Board members received personal grants after voting to bury complaints. Administrators' children got full scholarships following key decisions. A complex web of shell companies funneled money to silence victims. The pattern is clear, Naomi continued. When money couldn't buy compliance, they escalated to threats. When threats didn't work, they destroyed evidence and attacked credibility. Dr. Brooks wasn't their first target. She was simply the first who refused to break. The judge turned to Alana. Dr. Brooks, please take the stand. Alana rose smoothly, her steps measured as she approached the witness box. She wore a simple navy suit, her gray-streaked hair pulled back neatly. Her presence commanded attention without demanding it. Dr. Brooks, Prosecutor Chen began, please walk us through the events following the assault. Alana's testimony was devastating in its precision. She detailed every threat, every attempt at intimidation, every small cruelty designed to break her resolve. Her voice never wavered as she described the brick through her window, the vandalized mailbox, the late-night phone calls. Why didn't you back down? Chen asked. Because that's what they expected, Alana replied simply. Their power depends on people being too afraid or too tired to fight back. I've spent my career teaching students about civil rights and civic responsibility. I couldn't tell them to stand up for justice if I wouldn't do it myself. The gallery was completely silent as she finished. Even the court reporter had to pause, dabbing at her eyes. Evan stared at his hands, unable to meet Alana's gaze. Federal marshals approached the defense table, handcuffs ready. Evan stood mechanically as they secured his wrists, the metallic click echoing through the hushed courtroom. His father watched helplessly as his son was led toward the side door, cameras flashing through the windows. The young man who had swaggered through school halls was gone. In his place shuffled a pale teenager in an expensive suit, eyes fixed on the floor, shoulders hunched against the strobing camera lights. His father's money couldn't shield him anymore. His name couldn't protect him. All his inherited power had evaporated in the face of simple, documented truth. The settlement conference room on the 14th floor gleamed with polished wood and privilege. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered sweeping views of the city below, where news vans still clustered around the federal courthouse. Inside, the atmosphere crackled with tension, despite the room's attempted grandeur. Alana sat straight-backed beside Naomi, her hands folded calmly on the thick stack of settlement papers. Across the massive table, Northridge's new interim board members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Their previous swagger had evaporated, replaced by the nervous energy of people watching their carefully constructed world crumble. "Let's review the terms," Naomi said, her voice crisp in the artificial stillness. Northridge Preparatory agrees to pay Dr. Brooks $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages. This payment will be made in full within 7 business days. The interim board chairman, James Morrison, nodded stiffly. His predecessor was already cooperating with federal investigators. Furthermore, Naomi continued, the school will issue a public statement admitting to systematic discrimination, retaliation, and violation of Dr. Brooks's civil rights. This statement must be approved by our office and released to all major media outlets. The draft is prepared, Morrison said quietly, sliding a document forward. Alana read it carefully. The words were unambiguous. Northridge Preparatory acknowledges its role in perpetuating racial discrimination and actively participating in the harassment of Dr. Alana Brooks. We apologize unreservedly for our failure to protect her rights and dignity. The federal oversight requirements, Naomi pressed on, will be implemented immediately. This includes mandatory civil rights training, independent review of disciplinary actions, and quarterly audits of all discrimination complaints. The oversight period will last minimum 5 years, with potential extension based on compliance. Morrison wiped his forehead with a monogrammed handkerchief. The cost of these reforms would dwarf even the settlement amount. Agreed. Outside the conference room, phones buzzed with breaking news. Grant Whitlock's real estate empire was imploding as federal investigators uncovered decades of financial misconduct. 3 major banks had frozen his accounts. Investors were fleeing. His company's stock had dropped 60% in 2 days. Principal Raymond Hale, Naomi noted, checking her tablet, was charged this morning with obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. He's cooperating with prosecutors. She looked up. I assume the school has accepted his resignation? Effective immediately, Morrison confirmed. His own position was temporary. Part of the settlement required a complete overhaul of leadership. Alana maintained her composure, but beneath the table, her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, from the weight of vindication. Every dismissive comment, every racist slight, every attempt to make her feel small over her decades in education, all of it had led to this moment. The lawyers worked through the remaining details. Northridge would implement new hiring policies to increase staff diversity. They would establish a student civil rights council. Anonymous reporting systems would be upgraded. Each point represented a small victory in the larger war for institutional change. And finally, Naomi said, the media retractions. Morrison nodded again. The networks and newspapers that had smeared Alana's reputation were already publishing corrections. Their lawyers had seen the evidence and moved quickly to minimize liability. The narrative was shifting dramatically, from troubled teacher to courageous whistleblower. If everyone is satisfied, Morrison said wearily, we can proceed with signatures. The scratching of pens filled the room. With each signature, another piece of the old system crumbled. Alana signed last, her handwriting as steady as her resolve had been throughout the ordeal. As they gathered their materials to leave, Morrison cleared his throat. Dr. Brooks. He seemed to struggle for words. What happened to you? It wasn't right. I hope these changes help ensure it never happens again. Alana met his gaze. The changes will only matter if they're enforced. I'll be watching. They rode the elevator down in silence. In the lobby, Naomi squeezed Alana's arm. Ready? Alana nodded. The glass doors opened to a wall of cameras and supporters. Signs bobbed above the crowd. Justice for Dr. Brooks, and Black Teachers Matter, and End Corruption in Education. The cheering started as soon as they appeared. Naomi approached the microphones first. The settlement has been finalized. Northridge Preparatory has admitted wrongdoing and agreed to comprehensive reforms. Dr. Brooks's courage in pursuing justice will create lasting change for future educators and students. The crowd's approval was thunderous. Former students pressed forward, many crying. Current Northridge teachers who had initially stayed silent now stood proudly with signs of support. Local civil rights leaders raised their fists in solidarity. Alana moved through it all with characteristic grace, accepting hugs, but offering no comment yet. Her expression remained serious. This wasn't a moment for celebration, but for sober recognition of how much work remained. Back in her office, Naomi handed Alana a sealed envelope from the State Board of Education. Inside was the official notice. Her teaching license was not only reinstated, but came with a formal commendation for unwavering dedication to educational excellence and student welfare in the face of systematic opposition. Alana traced the gold seal with her finger, remembering the day she'd first received her license decades ago. She'd been so young then, so eager to change the world. Now she understood. Change didn't come from eagerness alone, but from the willingness to stand firm when that eagerness met real resistance. She carefully placed the notice in her folder of case documents. The folder was thick now: evidence, depositions, court orders, and finally, justice. Not just for her, but for every teacher who'd ever been forced to choose between dignity and survival. The new State Education Building's auditorium sparkled in the morning light. Fresh paint and polished wood carried none of the scars from the battles that had led to its creation. Sunbeams streamed through tall windows, illuminating rows of faces: educators, students, reporters, and civil rights advocates who had gathered for this moment. Dr. Marcus Rivera, State Education Commissioner, approached the podium. His voice carried authority and genuine warmth. Today marks a new chapter in our state's commitment to educational justice. Following the landmark Brooks case, our legislature has established the Office of Educational Oversight and Accountability. This independent body will ensure that no educator or student faces the systematic discrimination and retaliation that Dr. Alana Brooks courageously exposed. The audience stirred. In the front row, several of Alana's former students from across her career sat straight-backed and proud. Maria Suarez, now a law student, wiped away tears. Next to her, James Washington, a young teacher himself, nodded firmly. "It is my honor," Rivera continued, "to introduce our first Director of State Educational Oversight. Her qualifications extend far beyond her recent victory. Dr. Brooks brings 30 years of classroom excellence, a doctorate in educational policy, and an unshakable moral compass. Please welcome Dr. Alana Brooks." The applause was thunderous. Alana rose from her seat, straightening her navy blazer. Her steps to the podium were measured, deliberate, the same quiet strength that had carried her through the darkest days of her fight. "Thank you, Commissioner Rivera." Her voice was clear and steady. "When I began teaching, I made a promise to myself and my students. That promise wasn't about test scores or college admissions. It was about dignity, the fundamental right of every person in our schools to be treated with respect." She paused, scanning the faces before her. What happened at North Ridge exposed how easily systems can be corrupted when money and privilege are allowed to override justice. But it also showed us something more important: that those systems are not unbreakable. In the third row, Naomi Feld, her attorney through it all, smiled knowingly. They had proven that truth together. "This office will have real power," Alana continued. "Independent investigation authority, direct oversight of disciplinary procedures, mandatory reporting requirements. But its true strength will come from all of you. Educators willing to speak up, students brave enough to come forward, communities refusing to accept injustice as normal." The morning light caught the silver in her hair, earned through decades of service and struggle. We cannot promise that discrimination will never occur in our schools, but we can promise that it will never again be met with silence. Never again will a teacher have to choose between their dignity and their career. Never again will a student's truth be buried to protect the powerful. Several board members who had supported her case nodded from their seats. The reforms were already spreading beyond their state as other regions looked to implement similar oversight systems. To every educator who has ever swallowed their pride to keep their job, I see you. To every student who has been told that speaking up would only make things worse, I hear you. And to every administrator who thought money could buy silence. Her gaze hardened slightly. Those days are over. The applause that followed felt like a release of long-held breath. As Alana stepped back, people rose to their feet. Maria Suarez rushed forward to hug her former teacher, whispering, "You showed us how to fight." Later that afternoon, across town, a different scene unfolded in a courtroom. Evan Whitlock, no longer smirking, accepted a plea deal for assault and civil rights violations. His privilege had bought him lighter penalties than many faced for similar crimes, but his record would be permanent. No expungement, no sealed files. His father's empire had crumbled under federal investigation, their name now toxic in real estate circles. But Alana wasn't there to witness it. Instead, she stood in her new classroom at Roosevelt High School, arranging books and straightening desks. The school had actively recruited her, proud to have an educator of her caliber and courage. Principal Diana Martinez had personally welcomed her, saying, "Our students need to see what integrity looks like in action." The room felt right, warm, open, ready for learning. Student artwork already decorated one wall, including a portrait someone had drawn of her speaking at the courthouse. Below it, a quote from her testimony. "Education without dignity is not education at all." Her new students filtered in gradually. There was no fear in their eyes, no tension in their shoulders. They knew her story. Everyone did. But here she was, simply Dr. Brooks, their teacher. One girl raised her hand immediately. "Is it true you're going to help fix all the schools now?" Alana smiled. "I'm going to try. But the real change will come from students like you, speaking up when you see something wrong." The day passed in a blur of lesson plans, discussions, and the 100 small moments that made teaching worthwhile. As afternoon light slanted through the windows, Alana watched her last student leave, calling, "See you tomorrow, Dr. Brooks." She gathered her materials unhurried, savoring the peaceful rhythm of end-of-day routines. A photo of her with Naomi at the settlement signing sat on her desk, next to a stack of civil rights curriculum materials. Everything had changed, yet everything essential remained the same. Her commitment to education, to justice, to the next generation. Walking to the door, Alana paused. The classroom was quiet now, holding the day's energy like a remembered song. She thought of all the rooms like this one, all the teachers and students who would benefit from the changes she had fought for. It hadn't been an easy path, but it had been the right one. She turned the lock with familiar precision, tested the handle as she had done thousands of times before. The light switch was cool under her fingers as she reached for it. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.